Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Gary, for that introduction, and thank you to Heriot-Watt for the invitation to speak this morning. I'm going to talk to you about how Scottish Water is planning for the delivery of water and wastewater services in the future, and I've borrowed the title of my talk from our recent consultation, where we asked customers just the sorts of questions I'm going to be trying to answer this morning, and we asked them what their opinion was of what Scottish Water should be doing. The facts and figures that I'm going to show you this morning are all Scottish Water's. The opinions I'm going to express, especially towards the end of the presentation, are all mine and are based on my experience since I graduated from this university. So here are some of the facts and figures. We have 5 million customers in 2.4 million households, 79,000 square kilometres of area, 11,000 kilometres of coastline. And when I do this presentation or similar presentations at schools, I like to point out that for 47,000 kilometres of water pipes, if we laid our pipes end to end and started them here, heading west, they would go right the way across the oceans, right the way across the continents, and all the way around the world, and come back through the wall and start all over again. It's a lot of assets to maintain. And this is what we do. We provide high quality, affordable drinking water. We protect and enhance our environment, especially by collecting and treating wastewater. And we support Scotland's communities and its economy. And our vision is to be Scotland's most valued and trusted business, one that we can all be proud of. In planning for the future, our aim is to have a golden thread running from our vision through our strategies and our plans to our day-to-day operational and capital delivery. Now, you may think that this is a very standard business approach, but if we think about where Scottish Water has come from since it was formed in 2002, it's a very different story. When we were formed in 2002, we had much more investment requirement, both in capital maintenance, fixing things that were broken, and in enhancement, providing legally required levels of treatment that didn't exist. And we had much more of that to do than we had money to invest. So there wasn't much need for plans or strategies. It was get on, get it fixed, get it in the ground. However, the regulated water industry in Scotland has matured a lot over the past 10 years, and that maturity has not just been Scottish Water, it's also been with our regulators and with government. And the current investment programme and the one that's about to start in 2015 have been based on a 10-year planning horizon. And we've looked out 10 years and planned ahead on that basis. But now we're at the stage of actually trying to look out to 25 years and beyond, and trying to set what direction we want to take water and wastewater services over the next 25 years. I'm going to talk a little bit more detail now about those strategies and our approach to developing strategies. Pan-Scotland strategies are strategies and policies that we spread across the whole of the company and its asset base. They cover business drivers like leakage, interruption to supply, what we want to do with treating wastewater sludge. And as I say, the horizon that we're starting to look at now is 25 years and beyond. This is an example of one of the strategies on the wastewater side. We have the vision coming down to our asset management strategy and then our wastewater Pan-Scotland strategies, of which one is our wastewater network service strategy. The purpose of the wastewater network service strategy is to protect customers and the environment from flooding and pollution. When we're developing a strategy, we start nice and simply by working out where we are now, what sort of service we provide at the moment. We then look at where do we want to be, what sort of service do we want to be providing 25 years and beyond from now. And then we start talking about how we get there. And how we get there is through those key strategic intentions that you see shown on the screen. The main one for the network service is improving and protecting the hydraulic capability of the sewer system. But we also need an effective dialogue with customers and government and regulators as to what sort of service they expect us to provide from the wastewater systems that we have. And we also have to develop proper maintenance and operation schedules for those systems. If we follow the thread down from improving and protecting the hydraulic capability, we look at one of the main things for that is surface water management. And surface water management is a strategy in its own right. It requires customer education. It requires multi-agency approaches. We cannot deliver surface water management on our own, and I'll touch on that later on in my presentation. It needs incentivization for customers to manage their own surface water, and it needs us to start working out how we can reduce the surface water that comes into the sewer. And that's just one strand of that strategy. And now just talk a little bit about regional strategies. Below our Pan-Scotlands, we look at specific areas of interconnected assets. On the water side, source to tap. On the wastewater side, sink to sea. Looking at how we deliver the service through those assets over that period of time for a specific area of the country. When we split up the country into areas, the water and wastewater regions are different. The water regions are based on the hydraulic boundaries of source to tap for customers, whereas the wastewater regions are actually based on SEPA's river basin districts. And this is because that the thing that connects a lot of our wastewater assets is the river that they discharge to. And if you want to make decisions on how you're going to develop those systems over the next 25 years, you have to understand what's going to happen to that river over that time as well. One of the advantages we've gained from our regional strategy approach is the ability to look at the interconnectivity of our water networks and to enhance our resilience. This slide shows you the historic development of supplies in Scotland. You can see if you look at the Catrin scheme in 1859, or the Lomond, Ayrshire, Lanarkshire, Edinburgh and Lothian schemes, that these are regional schemes. They were developed by those authorities at that time to supply those areas with little thought given to connecting up or interconnecting those supplies. The yellow arrows on this slide show the areas where we are considering interconnection. And I'm going to talk a little bit about interconnection and resilience later on in the presentation. One of the most advanced regional strategies on the wastewater side covers the Greater Glasgow area. The first £250 million worth of investment for that strategy was launched by the Deputy First Minister, Nicola Sturgeon, yesterday. Hopefully you all saw it on the news. This area has 1.7 million customers. It has 6 wastewater treatment works, 3,800 kilometres of pipes, and 30 rivers and burns. Our strategy for this area is, for the next 25 years, is built from an integrated catchment models that allow us to understand the impact that our discharges from sewerage systems and wastewater treatment works have on the rivers and burns. The actual Glasgow strategy presentation takes about 2 hours, and even the summary of the Glasgow strategy presentation would take up my whole 20 minutes this morning. So I'm not going to talk about that much further, except I will come back to it a little bit when I speak about flooding. We're also looking to generate energy from our wastewater sludge through advanced anaerobic digestion. Currently, 80% of the sludge generated by Scottish Wastewater Treatment Works is covered by PFI contracts. The other 20%, which is wholly treated and recycled by Scottish Water, we are aiming to build advanced anaerobic digestion on, and many of the current PFI contracts are also moving to advanced anaerobic digestion. And it's our aim over the next 25 years to be generating energy from all of our sludge within Scotland. When looking out 25 years and beyond for our strategies, one of the main considerations is, of course, the impact of climate change. And some of the impacts of climate change are shown on this slide. But actually, we're already experiencing the impacts of a variable climate in Scotland. This picture shows the rainfall last summer, when the rain that normally falls on the Western Isles, over here, fell over here, in the east of Scotland. And the Western Isles had 3 months of glorious weather, for which everybody in the Western Isles was extremely happy. But it brought the Western Isles very close to having a drought in its water supply. In 2007, the dry area on that map was over Dundee. And you can see here the before and after effects of a long period without rainfall. Just after that picture was taken, the rains came and the system filled up again. But we do have a lot of rain in Scotland, generally. But what we do not have is an infinite amount of storage. And we do not have an infinite amount of storage of potable water. And that's why we're looking at connecting up the supply systems across the country, because this may be the most cost-effective and future-proof approach to ensuring supplies. Of course, it's not just the lack of rainfall that causes problems. Too much rain is just as bad. These images are from 2002 in Glasgow, when a deluge hit the city, and the city's drainage and sewerage systems spectacularly failed to cope with it. This flood was one of the catalysts for the investment that I spoke about in Glasgow and the improvements that we're making in Glasgow. This was a 1 in 100-year rainfall event. And we like to have numbers like that to design to. As engineers, it's nice to have set numbers and set figures to work to and to design to. Which brings me back to the point about climate change and predicting the future. This is a prediction of the possible change in return periods due to climate change. And you can see that large return period storms are going to become more frequent, but there's also quite an area of uncertainty around what you should be designing for and what you should be understanding. So what is the number that we should design for? When we're designing sewerage systems for the future, what return period should we take? When we're designing water resources for the future, what return period should we use? I don't know the answer to that question. But I do know that whatever number we use, we need to understand what will happen when what we design for and what we build for is overwhelmed or beaten by the storm that was the next number up on the graph. We need to understand what happens in exceedance situations. One of the things we learned in doing the work in Glasgow was the need for integrated modelling. We integrated our sewerage network models with SEPA's river models and water quality models. We worked with the local authorities and took their 2D LiDAR information and imposed that on our models so that we could see where, when flow popped out of a manhole during a rainfall event, where the flow would go, whose houses would get flooded, what would happen. We've also included coastal impacts and added those onto the models so that we can truly understand what happens in exceedance events and then start working with others about how you then design a city to be able to operate during those exceedance events. This approach has been taken on board by SEPA and ourselves and is going to be rolled out across Scotland. You see the next 5 prioritised catchments on the slide. That exact same approach between the local authorities, Scottish Water and SEPA is going to be taken in all those areas, getting into integrated catchment modelling. So the real challenge for Scottish Water in the future is how we perform our utility role as part of an integrated water cycle management. Can we provide more sustainable services? The integrated water supply networks that I was talking about being an example, or much more sustainable urban drainage in areas like Glasgow, opening up green areas in Glasgow, keeping surface water on the surface, not trying to get it into the sewerage system. Is there more opportunity for value recovery, especially on the wastewater side? Not just taking energy from the sludge and making electricity, which is the standard process at the moment, but should we be looking at recovering resources, phosphorus, for example, from those systems? And can we better protect and enhance the environment? Do we continue with a one-size-fits-all water and wastewater system? You see on the slide just now, whilst the title of this presentation was Water and Wastewater, I've included stormwater separately. That's one of the things I think we're going to have to address. The water and wastewater system works well in a utility context. The stormwater system does not. Stormwater is a municipality issue. Stormwater, especially in urban areas, is about how you design your cities and how you want to live and how you want to interact with rainfall and storm events. That doesn't lend itself well to a utility model for delivery. And this is our current utility model that you see on the screen. And it works well for larger agglomerations of people, and it's served us very well to date. But what about small communities, of which Scotland has a great deal? Is that the best model for servicing small communities? Should we consider making smaller communities much more resilient, much more self-serving in terms of both drinking water supply, but also their wastewater systems, grey water reuse, storm water use for flushing toilets? Someone had asked a question earlier about the use of potable water for flushing toilets. Can we look at localised waste to energy generation, as shown here? At the moment, this sort of model would be too difficult for large towns and cities. It cuts across a number of legal requirements and issues that all seem too difficult to solve. But why could we not do it for smaller communities? Why could we not consider in smaller communities of Scotland these sorts of models? And the lessons that we learn from doing it at the smaller communities could unlock the potential for us doing it at larger communities. Thank you.